She collapsed, clutching her newborn. No one helped until a mysterious millionaire lifted her into his arms. The apartment was suffocating, a one-bedroom barely holding together at the edge of the city, with peeling walls and the distant sound of sirens echoing through the cracked window panes. The hallway light flickered overhead like a dying star. Lisa stood barefoot, cradling her newborn son, Luke, against her chest. Her hospital bracelet still clung to her wrist. She hadn't even been home for a full day. Jason stood by the door with his coat already on, his voice sharp and final. "You're not bringing that baby back into this house, Lisa. I'm done." Lisa blinked, stunned, arms tightening instinctively around her son. "Jason, what are you saying? He's your son. You were there when he was born." "I told you I wasn't ready for this," Jason snapped. "You think you can just throw your mess into my life and expect me to carry it?" Lisa's voice trembled. "I just gave birth. We don't have anywhere else to go. Please, he's only 3 days old." "I'm not responsible for you anymore," he said, opening the door. "Figure it out." Then he was gone. The door slammed shut behind him with a finality that made Luke flinch in her arms. By noon, she was outside. She'd packed a few diapers, a can of formula, a thin blanket, and a bottle into an old tote bag. Her phone was nearly dead. Her savings, what little remained, were in her sock, rolled into $20 bills. No plan, no destination, just Luke's small weight against her chest and the growing ache in her feet. She wandered through the streets of the city, stopping at diners, stores, even a car wash. "I'll do anything," she pleaded. "Clean, sort, sweep. I just need a few hours. I can work with him on me. I won't bother anyone." They all said no. Some were polite, some weren't. "You should be in a shelter," one woman said, not meeting her eyes. A man at a sandwich shop sneered. "Go back to whoever knocked you up." Each rejection chipped away at her until there was almost nothing left. By evening, Lisa hadn't eaten in 24 hours. Luke stirred in his wrap, his soft cries growing sharper. Her arms shook. Her lips were dry. The sounds of the city blurred around her. The honking horns, the chatter, the slam of subway grates. Her vision wavered. She crossed a busy street near Midtown. Skyscrapers loomed above, bathed in golden light from the sinking sun. Crowds bustled in every direction. A food truck hissed on the corner, sending the scent of grilled onions into the air. She didn't remember her knees giving out. One moment she was walking, the next her legs buckled. She dropped hard onto the pavement, shielding Luke with both arms as they hit the ground. Someone stepped around her. Another glanced, then walked faster. Lisa opened her mouth. "Please." A man in a suit looked down, scowled, and kept walking. Her body curled protectively around Luke. Her head felt heavy. "I'm sorry, baby," she whispered. "I'm trying." Then tires screeched. A black Bentley cut across traffic and pulled up to the curb. The driver barely had time to react before the back door opened and a tall man in a navy coat stepped out. Jose Marquez Santiago, entrepreneur, investor, and the kind of millionaire who made more money before breakfast than most people earned in a year, didn't usually take this route home. But today he had asked his driver to avoid traffic. He wasn't expecting this. He saw her. The woman collapsed on the pavement, the tiny baby in her arms. The crowd had left her there. He didn't hesitate. In 2 strides he knelt beside her. "Miss," he said, voice low and controlled, "can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open briefly. Luke whimpered in her arms. Jose gently reached for the baby first, checking his face and breath, then carefully slid one arm beneath Lisa's back, the other beneath her knees. He lifted them both as if they weighed nothing. Gasps rose from the onlookers. "Is he taking her?" "He just picked her up like that." "Wait! That's Jose Santiago. That's him." He ignored them all. "To the car," he told his driver. He placed Lisa and the baby in the back seat, adjusting Luke's position with delicate care. He unbuttoned his coat, folded it, and tucked it behind her head. "Mount Sinai," he said firmly. "Now." As the car pulled into traffic, Jose looked down at the woman lying unconscious beside her baby, Her body curled around him even in sleep. She had fallen alone, but she would not rise that way. The first thing Lisa felt was softness beneath her, around her, warmth. Then the faint scent of lavender. She opened her eyes slowly, blinking against the soft morning light filtering through sheer curtains. Her body tensed. This wasn't the hospital. This wasn't the sidewalk. She was lying in a large bed with crisp white sheets, in a room too quiet, too clean, too expensive. Her heart raced. She sat up, dizzy. Her eyes scanned the space. White walls, a high ceiling, a crystal chandelier overhead. Across the room stood a bassinet, her breath caught. "Luke?" She scrambled out of bed, rushed across the carpet. The baby lay there, bundled in fresh clothes, sleeping peacefully. A tiny monitor blinked beside him. Her knees buckled in relief. Then the door creaked open. Lisa turned sharply, bracing herself. Jose stood there, dressed in a dark gray sweater and slacks, calm and unreadable. She stepped back. "Who are you? Where am I? Why is my son here?" "You're safe," he said evenly, staying near the door. "My driver and I brought you here last night. You fainted. The baby was burning with fever." She stared at him, breath ragged. "You brought me to your house?" "To my home," he said. "You needed help. The hospital gave me your discharge papers. You weren't admitted." "I didn't have insurance," she murmured, eyes darting. "I figured," he replied, tone still calm. "You were dehydrated." Exhausted, she looked down at Luke, then back at Jose. "I appreciate what you did, really, but I need to go," he nodded once. "Of course. There's a storm outside, though. Heavy rain. Your baby still has a fever." As if on cue, a low rumble of thunder echoed through the windows. Lisa glanced outside, gray skies, rain streaking down the glass like tears. Her shoulders dropped. "I'll get out of your way," she said. "You're not in my way," he said quietly. She hesitated. "This place, it's yours?" He nodded. "This bed, these clothes, that bassinet. All arranged overnight." Lisa stared at him, overwhelmed. "Why would you go through that for a stranger?" Jose looked away for a moment. "Because you were the only person lying on the street and no one stopped. That bothered me." Lisa didn't know what to say. He gestured toward a side table. "There's food in the kitchen if you're hungry. Bottled formula and baby medicine in the drawer. I'll be working most of the day. My staff won't disturb you." Then, with a short nod, he turned and left. For hours, Lisa stayed in the room. Luke's fever eased after she fed him the medicine. She held him close, watching the rain blur the skyline beyond the window. That evening, she ventured out into the hallway. The mansion was grand, white walls, polished floors, quiet as a chapel. She found the kitchen. A bottle warmer sat on the counter, freshly sterilized bottles beside it. In the fridge, she found baby formula and pre-cut fruit. Back in the room, she noticed something she hadn't earlier, a small, handwritten note on the nightstand. "Room monitor is voice-activated. Speak softly, and it dims the lights." Emergency button under the drawer. "He is safe." Jay, she read it twice. Later that night, as Luke drifted back to sleep in the bassinet, Lisa watched him in silence. She had no idea who Jose Santiago truly was, or what his world looked like beyond these walls. But in this moment, surrounded by quiet care and unexpected protection, she realized something. This was the first time in weeks she didn't feel completely alone. The rain stayed for 3 more days. Lisa didn't ask to stay, and Jose never brought it up. But the quiet understanding between them settled like mist over the grand house, subtle, wordless, unspoken. Each morning, Lisa rose early. Though no one expected her to do anything, she found peace in motion. She wiped the counters, folded blankets, washed bottles. She cooked oatmeal for herself and prepared tiny spoonfuls of mashed banana for Luke, now slowly recovering from his fever. Jose noticed. He noticed the way she tiptoed around the mansion, never disturbing a single item that wasn't hers. He noticed how she gently patted Luke's back with practiced tenderness while whispering lullabies, soft, rhythmic songs that carried hints of a world far gentler than the one they had both known. She never sang loudly, just enough for Luke to sleep. One morning, he stood outside the nursery door, frozen by the sound. Lisa sat by the window, Luke in her arms, cradled against her chest. Her voice was low, soothing. "Hush, my baby, don't you cry. Mama's here, and stars are high." The melody was simple, the words barely audible. But Jose didn't move. He stood in the hallway for several minutes, the sound wrapping around him like a blanket he didn't know he needed. By the fourth day, he caught himself waiting for her humming each night. And by the fifth, he found himself lingering in places he didn't need to be, passing by the kitchen at just the right time to see her brushing crumbs from the counter, glancing into the sitting room to find Luke cooing while she played peekaboo with the hem of a dish towel. He never interrupted. He didn't know how. Until one morning, just before sunrise, Luke's sharp cry cut through the hall. Jose, already dressed for an early meeting, found himself walking toward the sound before he could second-guess it. He hesitated at the doorway, then pushed it open quietly. Lisa sat up in bed, hair tousled, blinking sleep from her eyes. Luke was fussing beside her in the bassinet, his fists flailing, face red. Jose moved to the crib and reached down with caution. "I've got him," he said, voice low. Let me try." Lisa blinked again, then nodded, amused. Jose lifted Luke with both hands, holding him stiffly like a package marked fragile. The baby squirmed, wailed louder. "I think he hates me," Jose muttered. Lisa chuckled softly, reaching for a bottle. "He's just hungry, here." Jose tried to cradle the baby in one arm and take the bottle with the other. Luke kicked. Okay, Jose said, flustered. "I'm a CEO, not a baby whisperer." Lisa smiled as she took Luke back, rocking him gently while offering the bottle. Within seconds, the baby calmed. "You're doing fine," she said gently. Jose exhaled. "You make it look easy." "It's not," she said, eyes focused on her son, "but he's worth everything." Jose stood quietly for a moment, watching them. Something shifted in him, slow, quiet, but unmistakable. Later that evening, when Lisa returned to the room after giving Luke a bath, she found a package placed neatly beside her pillow, a bundle of newborn diapers. High quality, organic, and a folded note. She opened it with careful fingers. "You are not alone." No signature, but she knew. Lisa stared at the note for a long moment, then looked toward the hallway, where shadows danced just beyond the doorframe. She pressed the paper to her chest, and for the first time since her world fell apart, she let herself believe it. The morning sky was a gentle gray, soft and still. Jose stood by the front door of the mansion, holding Luke's carrier in one hand and watching Lisa as she adjusted the baby's blanket. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice light with curiosity. "I want to show you something," he replied. "Somewhere important." The drive wasn't long. They passed through neighborhoods that shifted from polished to plain, high-rises giving way to small brick buildings. Eventually, the car pulled up in front of a modest community center with peeling paint and a crooked sign that read, "Hope Haven Foundation." Lisa stepped out slowly, eyes scanning the busy courtyard where children played tag and volunteers set up folding tables. "This is yours?" she asked, surprised. Jose nodded. "It's one of the few things I fund that makes me feel human." Inside, the space was full of movement. Older kids sorted books into crates. Two toddlers played with mismatched toys near the window. A volunteer with kind eyes offered Lisa a cup of tea and cooed at Luke. Jose watched as Lisa moved through the space. She bent down to help a girl fix her shoelaces. She wiped a boy's runny nose without flinching. She sat on the floor, bouncing Luke on her knee while telling a story to a group of children with wide, waiting eyes. She belonged, and for the first time, Jose realized she wasn't impressed by his name on the building or the articles framed on the walls. She didn't ask about the size of the donations or the reach of his foundation. She asked about the kids. "How long has Jamal been here? Does Emily have asthma? Do the volunteers rotate?" Consistency matters for them. He found himself answering, following her as she asked questions no guest ever bothered to ask. "You don't see this as charity," he said, almost to himself. Lisa turned to him. "I see it as community. These kids don't need saviors. They need presence." Jose stared at her for a moment, caught off guard. Not by her words, but by the way she said them, like they came from somewhere deep and real. That afternoon, one of the staff mentioned it was a young boy's birthday, Milo, turning 9, quiet and shy, no family to speak of. Jose was ready to send someone out for a cake, but Lisa had a better idea. "Do you have flour, eggs?" she asked. "Let's bake it." An hour later, the small kitchen smelled like vanilla and chocolate. Lisa mixed, Luke strapped to her chest in a carrier, swaying as she worked. Jose cracked eggs, flour dusting his designer sleeves. They laughed when the batter splashed. Lisa smudged frosting on Jose's nose, and he didn't even flinch. That evening, they sang to Milo in a room full of clapping kids. The boy lit up like a lantern when Lisa handed him a gift-wrapped book, and Jose saw something shift in the boy's eyes, a flicker of trust, of being seen. Later, as they packed up, Jose leaned against the wall, watching Lisa clean icing off Luke's chin. "You're different," he said. She looked up. "Different how? You didn't ask what this place cost. You never looked at the plaque with my name on it." "I saw it," she said gently. But what mattered more were the fingerprints on the walls and the smiles in the room. Jose didn't reply, but in that moment, something in his guarded heart softened. He didn't know it yet, but Lisa had just walked into the one place he thought no one could reach anymore. The storm rolled in without warning. Gray clouds coiled low over the mansion like a tightening noose, thunder rumbling through the hills in deep, deliberate pulses. The wind bent the trees along the driveway, whispering warnings no one inside seemed to hear yet. Within the grand halls of the estate, the atmosphere was deceptively still. Firelight flickered gently in the sitting room, casting soft glows on polished wood and velvet. Jose sat by the hearth, a leather-bound book open in his lap but unread, his thoughts adrift, until the sharp, unmistakable staccato of stilettos echoed across the marble foyer. He looked up, brow furrowed. Karen Aldridge swept through the front entrance without knocking, her long tan coat impeccable despite the growing drizzle outside. Raindrops glistened like diamonds on the hem, but not a strand of her golden hair was out of place. Her presence alone chilled the room several degrees. It wasn't the weather. It was her. "Karen?" Jose stood slowly, surprised. "Jose," she said with a honeyed smile, stepping further into the room like she owned it. "I was in the neighborhood. Thought I'd stop by." He didn't respond immediately, his gaze drifting past her toward the baby blanket folded neatly over the couch. Her eyes followed the movement and narrowed. Faint cooing and the hum of a lullaby filtered through the hallway, a sound soft enough to seem unreal. Her smile faltered. Moments later, Lisa entered, her arms cradling Luke against her chest, rocking him gently. Her steps slowed as she took in the sight of the unfamiliar woman in the room. Karen's eyes narrowed. "Who is this?" Jose rose, voice even. "This is Lisa. She's staying here with her son." Lisa's voice, though quiet, carried calm strength. "Just until we find stability. We're not here to impose." Karen tilted her head with mock sweetness. "How generous of you, Jose." Lisa offered a polite nod and turned to step away, but Karen wasn't done. "You let her stay here with a baby?" she asked, tone laced with disdain. "Do you even know her past?" Jose didn't flinch, but he didn't answer either. Lisa paused. She didn't defend herself, not yet. She didn't need to. But something in her chest tightened. The hours that followed were tense. Karen lingered longer than necessary, always within earshot. Her words were sugary, her laugh controlled, but her eyes never left Lisa. She noticed the way Jose handed her a cup of tea, the way Lisa smiled down at Luke, and she hated it. That evening, just as the storm broke in full, it happened. One of the staff came rushing into the study. The display case in the east wing had been opened. A necklace was missing. A one-of-a-kind piece gifted to Jose by a royal client, kept under lock and constant surveillance. Except the camera outside the room had suddenly gone dark. Karen stood near the case, arms folded, lips pursed in calm satisfaction. "She's the only outsider here," she said, casting a glance at Lisa, who had just entered. Lisa froze. "I didn't even know this room existed." "How convenient," Karen murmured. "And the camera failing at that exact time?" Jose turned to the security team. "Who else entered the East Wing today?" "Only Karen and Ms. Lisa, sir, but the camera was disabled at 4:07 p.m. Someone did it manually." Lisa stepped forward, heart pounding. "Jose, you know I wouldn't steal from you." Jose's face betrayed nothing, but his silence spoke volumes. "I want to believe that," he said at last. "I really do, but you don't," Lisa whispered. He didn't respond. "I think," he said slowly, "it's best if you leave. Tonight." Lisa stared, stunned. "With my baby? In this storm?" "I'll send the driver," he said, avoiding her gaze. "Anywhere you want." She looked at him for a long, breathless moment, eyes glistening but dry. Then she nodded. "No need," she said. "We'll walk." "Lisa," he began, a flicker of regret flashing across his face, but she had already turned. She packed in silence, folding each small item with care. Luke slept soundly, unaware. Rain pounded the windows. Lisa kept her chin up as she walked down the long hallway one last time. No one followed. As she stepped into the rain, it soaked her within seconds. Her jacket clung to her back, her shoes splashed through cold puddles. She walked down the long driveway without looking back. Inside, from the second-floor window, Jose watched. He did not move, but something inside him cracked. He could feel it. Still, he had let her go. The rain had stopped by morning, but it left behind a cold, weighty silence that clung to the walls of the mansion like fog. Sunlight barely filtered through the tall windows, casting long, thin shadows across the floor. The air felt heavier than usual, as if the house itself was holding its breath. Jose hadn't slept. He sat alone in the study, still in yesterday's clothes, a stack of untouched reports fanned out across the desk before him. He hadn't read a word. His eyes remained locked on the surveillance system interface in front of him. Something about last night wouldn't let him rest, something in Lisa's eyes when she walked away, the way her voice cracked when she said nothing at all. He replayed it in his mind again and again. Karen's sudden reappearance, her constant watching, the conveniently timed camera failure, the necklace that went missing and the damning silence that followed, and Lisa, standing there holding her child, already carrying the weight of a world that had never made room for her. Jose leaned forward and opened the backup storage directory. Every security system he installed had a hidden redundancy. Karen, confident as ever, must have assumed that disabling the hallway camera was enough, but she didn't know he had insisted on a second layer, an internal feed that only he could access, buried behind layers of encrypted firewalls. He scrubbed through the footage. There it was, time-stamped, crystal clear. Karen, slipping into the east wing with a confident stride and something glinting in her hand. The camera caught every movement, her approach to the display case, the flick of her wrist as she opened it, the subtle way she slid the necklace into her handbag, and the satisfied smirk on her face as she walked out. Jose leaned back in his chair, breath catching in his throat. Fury, guilt, and disbelief churned inside him like a storm. Without hesitation, he stood. 15 minutes later, Karen was lounging in the dining room in a silk robe, sipping coffee from a delicate china cup. The morning light bathed her in gold, but there was nothing warm about her. Jose entered the room, his steps hard, deliberate. He dropped a flash drive onto the polished table. It spun slightly before settling. Karen looked up, her expression bored, until she saw his face. "You planned everything," he said, voice low and heavy with restrained rage. She blinked slowly. "What are you talking about?" He took a step closer. The necklace, the disabled camera, Lisa. Karen's face remained composed for a heartbeat longer. Then she shrugged, her lips curling. She didn't belong here. You manipulated me, he said, each word deliberate, sharp. You made me doubt her. You humiliated a woman who had done nothing but trust me, and you did it because you couldn't stand being replaced. She was using you, Karen snapped. I was protecting you from your own stupidity. No, Jose said, his voice rising for the first time. You were using me, always. Karen stood up, her eyes hardening. So now what? You're choosing some broken single mother and her crying brat over someone like me? I'm not defending her, Jose said, stepping so close she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. I'm choosing her. For the first time, Karen's confidence cracked. You'll regret this, she hissed. No, he said coldly. You will. He turned to the butler standing silently in the doorway. Show her out. She is never to come back here again. Karen hesitated, then swept past him with icy grace, but Jose didn't watch her go. Because he already knew what he had to do. 10 minutes later he was behind the wheel, flying down the freeway. The sky above was still gray, as if the storm had left pieces of itself behind. He didn't have a destination, he only had a vision. A woman with tired eyes and a quiet strength. A baby boy who had once fallen asleep in his arms. A chance, no, a choice, not to let them slip away. He stopped at every corner store, asked every motel clerk, peered into every sheltered dining hall, holding out Lisa's photo and a whispered hope. He didn't know how many hours passed, but he knew one thing. He would not stop. Not until he found her. The old church on 9th Street stood quiet against the gray sky, its worn stone walls darkened by the recent storm. The stained glass windows, chipped in corners and faded by time, still glowed faintly in the late afternoon light, casting soft beams of red, gold, and blue across the cracked wooden floor inside. In the dining hall below, the air was thick with the scent of warm broth and baked bread. The hum of conversation rose gently over the clatter of metal trays. The volunteers moved swiftly but kindly, offering second helpings with tired smiles and brief words of comfort to the line of people who had nowhere else to go. Lisa sat near the back, tucked into a quiet corner. A paper bowl of vegetable soup rested untouched in front of her. Her hands cradled Luke, who slept soundly in her arms, his face flushed against the worn edge of a flannel blanket, the only dry covering they had left. Her own coat was still damp, clinging to her skin like regret. Her shoes were muddy, her fingers numb. But her eyes remained focused, steady. She had held herself together for days. Since walking away from the mansion, since leaving behind the warmth, the softness, the fragile hope, she hadn't allowed herself to cry. She couldn't. Not with Luke depending on her. Not when the world had already taken so much. And then she heard footsteps. Not hurried, not hesitant, just steady, familiar, anchored. She didn't look up at first. She didn't need to. Her breath caught in her chest. Jose! When she finally raised her eyes, he was standing at the entrance of the hall, framed by the doorway, scanning the crowd with a quiet urgency. His coat was still unbuttoned, his hair damp, his face drawn, not from the rain, but from the hours, maybe days, spent searching. Their eyes met, and everything else fell away. He walked toward her slowly, each step measured, as if making sure she would not vanish. Conversations around them faded. The noise quieted. People turned, curious, but Lisa didn't notice. She couldn't hear anything above the sound of her heartbeat. He stopped in front of her. No words, just a look, torn, remorseful, real. Then he knelt. He pulled off his coat without hesitation and draped it over her shoulders. It was still warm from his body. The gesture was gentle, reverent. Only then did he speak, voice low, barely above a whisper. I'm sorry. Lisa's grip on Luke tightened, her jaw clenched, holding back the emotion rising in her throat. For a moment she said nothing. Then she looked at him, really looked, and what she saw wasn't guilt. It wasn't pity. It was the face of a man who had been wrong and wasn't afraid to admit it. "Thanks for coming back," she said, voice soft and hoarse. One tear slipped down her cheek. She let it fall. Jose swallowed hard, his own eyes damp. "I was wrong. About everything. I let someone twist what I knew about you. I doubted you when all you ever showed me was honesty." Lisa shook her head slowly. "It's okay." "No," he said firmly, emotion thickening his voice. "You and Luke deserved better than what I gave you." His eyes dropped to the sleeping child, then returned to hers. "I didn't come here to save you, Lisa," he said. "I don't want to rescue you. I just want to walk with you, wherever you go, however long it takes." She stared at him, heart pounding in her chest. There were no grand promises, no dramatic pleas, just truth, simple, steady, real. And somehow it was more than enough. She reached for his hand. He took it, quietly. And for the first time since their paths had crossed, they sat together, not as mistake and savior, but as two souls choosing, despite everything, to move forward side by side. The house near the shore was nothing grand, white shutters, a wraparound porch, wild flowers growing freely along the fence. But inside it was filled with light, laughter, and something neither Lisa nor Jose had truly known before: peace. A year had passed since that rainy night. Lisa stood in the sunlit kitchen, flour on her cheeks, piping delicate swirls onto the cake she had made from scratch. Luke sat at the table nearby, swinging his legs and humming while arranging tiny paper flowers. Outside the window, Jose was setting up folding chairs in the garden, sleeves rolled up, barefoot in the grass. No mansion, no marble floors, just home. Lisa now worked full-time at New Wings, a non-profit supporting single mothers. Every morning she helped other women who were where she once was, lost, scared, exhausted, find their footing again. Her eyes, once shadowed with worry, now sparkled with a quiet fire. She had built something of her own, something lasting, and today was more than special. That morning, in a modest courthouse filled with their closest friends, Jose had signed the final papers. He was now, legally, proudly, Luke's father. No cameras, no fuss, just one moment, one signature, and a little boy who threw his arms around Jose's neck and whispered, "Dad," for the very first time. Jose had held him tightly, eyes wet, whispering back, "I've always been." Now, as the sun dipped low and the garden filled with the soft sounds of music and chatter, they stood together at the makeshift altar beneath the vines. Friends surrounded them, people they had helped, loved, and healed with. No reporters, no designer gowns, just real smiles and a breeze that carried the scent of roses and hope. Lisa wore a simple ivory dress she'd sewn herself. Jose wore linen. Luke, proudly carrying the rings on a velvet pillow, walked down the grassy aisle with exaggerated care, earning gentle applause and quiet laughter. The vows were short, honest. No dramatic promises. Just this: "Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible," Lisa said, tears brimming. "Thank you for never letting me walk alone again." Jose took her hands. "Thank you for making me a father, and for showing me that home isn't a place. It's two arms and one laugh I never want to live without." They exchanged simple bands, no gold, just silver, enough. After the ceremony, while guests shared lemonade and soft music played from a speaker tied to a tree, Jose sat on the steps of their porch with Luke in his lap and Lisa beside him. He pulled them both close, pressing a kiss to Luke's hair, then to Lisa's temple. "Thank you," he whispered, voice thick. "Thank you for making me a family. Today I have everything." And as the stars blinked to life above them, Lisa rested her head on his shoulder. She remembered the cold pavement, the strangers who passed by, the arms that lifted her when no one else did. She had fallen in the street. But he picked her up, forever. And together they learned something no fairy tale ever quite says: happiness is not found, it's built. She had nothing, just a child in her arms and a heart full of hope. He had everything, except someone to share it with. But when their worlds collided, they built something neither of them expected: a family, a home, a new beginning. Because sometimes, love does not come dressed in perfection. It comes wrapped in second chances, whispered promises, and the quiet courage to stay. If this story moved you, reminded you of the strength we carry and the love we build, don't forget to subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories. Soul-Stirring Stories, real deep emotions, healing hearts. Hit subscribe, turn on the bell, and join us every week for more unforgettable journeys of hope, compassion, and the beauty of ordinary miracles.